My friends, we're heading into a very strange place where we could get involved in direct confrontation between the US and Russia because of the background, with the connections that each country has to other countries behind the scenes. I'll explain that in a little bit. We're going to look at what's going on in Europe, and then we're going to go look at what's shifted in the United States. And you want to stay with me with that because I'm trying to give you context to help you understand what comes next. And then we're going to be looking at why Venezuela, what's going on there, and what's the Russian connection. Okay, so let's start here. Last night, Moscow was rocked by explosions as Russia says its air defenses intercepted nearly 200 Ukrainian drones overnight. Not 200 in Moscow, 200 across Russia. 34 shot down in the Moscow region. And I talked about that in the previous video, so I'm not going to go back over that again. Okay, Vilnius airport was also shut down, fourth time in a week after Belarus weather balloons incursion. Lithuania closed two Belarus border points indefinitely. Officials say it's part of a hybrid attack. I want you to note something. Vilnius is right here. It's the capital city. It's very close to Minsk. And this doesn't look like anything having to do with the Russians. It looks like people are smuggling cigarettes for some bizarre reason I don't quite understand, but it's affecting Vilnius's airport because they have to be careful. Nearly 70 weather balloons launched from Belarus to smuggle cigarettes shut down Vilnius airport overnight. It's already the forced closure of the airport this October. This time, the incident affected 95 flights and 14,000 passengers. I've been in that airport a number of times. Lithuanian president said that due to inaction of Belarusian authorities, he proposes to restrict transit to Russia's Kaliningrad region and closes the border with Belarus for an extended period. I can't detect anything that's telling me that this is like a Russian hybrid war kind of something. It doesn't seem like that's really what's going on at all here. So if something changes, I'll let you know. Ukraine needs at least 10 Patriot air defense systems immediately, says the foreign minister. Kyiv is urging partners to help procure them under the Pearl initiative while also working to boost domestic production for long-term deterrence. Again, air defense is going to be massively important, especially as we're getting into the winter. And in the winter, it's going to be just brutal. Russia is going after all kinds of energy, and we know that that's what's happening. Now, at the same time, Saab in Sweden plans to open a Gripen fighter jet plant in Ukraine, according to the Financial Times. The move is part of Ukraine-Sweden deal to procure 150 Gripens. The proposed funding source would be frozen Russian assets, and we'll see how that all plays out. But that's moving the right direction. Now, at the same time, we have some problems like these pieces of Russian-made missiles. 68 new foreign-made components were found in Russian missiles and drones, including chips from U.S., Japanese, Swiss, and Chinese manufacturers. They're getting them somehow. So how are they getting them? That's really the question. Okay, and then we saw this. Why is the EU still funding Putin's war? The Guardian reports the EU is the #1 buyer of Russian gas, purchasing 50% of all its LNG, liquefied natural gas. Hungary, Slovakia, France, Belgium, Netherlands are all still sending millions to Russia. So what exactly is happening here? Here's liquefied and pipeline gas, and the biggest buyer is the EU by a long shot. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable to watch. Meanwhile, the U.S. ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, is saying, "Look, we're going to do what we can to get the Europeans off of Russian gas."
Our expectation is that countries like Hungary, Turkey, and Slovakia that continue to buy Russian oil and gas will come up with a plan and execute a plan that weans them off of Russian oil and gas. And, Hungary, unlike many of their neighbors, has not made any plans or made any active steps. And so we're going to continue to work with.
Yeah, we're only 3.5 years through the war. I mean, plus almost 4 years, and they haven't figured this out yet.
Them, and we're going to continue to work with their neighbors like Croatia and other countries that can help them wean themselves off. And, obviously that pipeline is most likely to be shut off in the coming years.
Yeah, so, I mean, they ought to be working down this path. Okay. Anonymous, meanwhile, has hacked the Kremlin servers. Anonymous is this group of hackers that they kind of a vigilante hacker group, and they've gone after bad actors. I'm not saying these are good guys either, because they're kind of a law unto themselves, but they're attacking Kremlin servers. Anonymous is applying its own digital sanctions on Russia. We demand that they surrender and fully leave all Ukrainian territory. At least in this regard, they're hitting the right kind of bad guy. Okay, so Trump has raised tariffs. This is a second big story on Canada by over 10% over an ad campaign. This was a couple days ago. The foundation said that the ad distorted, the Reagan Foundation said the ad distorted Reagan's words about tariffs, which angered Trump. But they didn't really. Because of their distortions and hostile actions, I'm increasing tariffs on Canada by 10% of what they already pay. Well, okay, so let's look at first at the ad and just a little bit of the ad. And then we'll talk about it.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer.
Yeah, and that's correct. And this is part of a speech, and this is the speech in which it was done, and
Stake.
And it was based, created by Ontario, Canada, and Ontario is a big trading partner with the U.S. So, of course, this seems like a bad idea for them. Well, Trump was pretty upset about this, and he went and put this out here. Canada was caught red-handed putting up fraudulent advertisement on Ronald Reagan's speech on tariffs. The Reagan Foundation said that they created a campaign using selective audio and video of President Ronald Reagan. The ad misrepresents the presidential radio address. I don't really think it does. Did not seek nor receive permission to use and edit the remarks. The Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute is reviewing its legal options on this matter. The sole purpose of this, now this is Trump saying, the sole purpose of this is fraud was Canada's hope that the United States Supreme Court would come to their rescue on tariffs. Okay, so one, tariffs are just bad. I mean, I've been saying this for a decade, right? Tariffs are not, I mean, when I teach this, tariffs are bad. Michael McFaul said Reagan valued immigration support, and legitimate immigration, not what we've allowed to happen, like come through the front door, not the back door. That would be Reagan's position. Supported trade and despised tariffs and promoted democracy abroad. On three issues, Trump has the exact opposite policies. This is the bizarre thing to me. Like I'm a Reagan conservative, and I find that it's so bizarre. But Mike Pence put this out: Reagan versus Trump on tariffs. The Gipper, that's a nickname for President Reagan, was a free trader, no matter what the current president says. Now Trump likes to do these victory laps about tariffs, and I know you don't think it's important, but it is. What's happening here is important. Trump likes to talk about how tariffs are this wonderful thing. Reagan was in a very different camp, and saw this. This is Reagan with the Ukrainian flag behind it, because this is Preston Stewart on this showing this on display at Ukraine Action Summit. What would Reagan do? That's the question I asked myself when the war first broke. How would Reagan have processed this? Well, he would have been on the side of Ukraine, like no, Russia, you shouldn't be doing this. Okay, Reagan and Obama. This is mind-blowing to me now. Reagan and Obama had more in common regarding foreign policy than Reagan and Trump. Now, I'm not sure that that's 100% true, but in some cases, it is pretty true. It's weird. In Soviet days, there were many Americans and other Westerners who were tools of the Kremlin. I would be surprised if any of them belonged to the Republican Party. And now what we see is this: Anna Paulina Luna receiving this book entitled The Great Words of a Great Man, happily from Kirill Dmitriev. You can see the great man referred to right there on the cover, and she's very excited. And I showed her in a different video, repeating these Russian talking points, and it's so mind-numbing to see Republicans doing this. Okay, now that's talking about the shift within the United States. Now, part of the shift within the United States is not supporting Ukraine so much, but proposing to fight with Venezuela. What's going on here? Okay. Now, with that, Russia is also supporting Venezuela. This is why we could see an indirect conflict become an actual conflict if it's not handled correctly. Let's look at this. Russia is reportedly sending weapons and mercenaries to Venezuela as tensions rise with the United States. A sanctioned Il-76 cargo plane arrived in Caracas after stops in Yerevan, Algiers, Rabat, Dakar, and something else I can't pronounce. The aircraft is linked to arms transport for Wagner operations in Africa and Venezuela. Yeah, well, Wagner, I guess, has been in Venezuela for many years. U.S. Senator sends a warning to Maduro. If I were you, I'd run. Your days are numbered. This is U.S. Senator Rick Scott. He's a Republican from Florida saying, listen to this.
If I was Maduro, I'd head to Russia or China right now.
Because?
His days are numbered. Something's going to happen. Whether it's internal or external, I think something's going to happen.
The firepower that's off the coast, right? This is
again, this is a sitting U.S. senator saying this, so take his words are weighty.
This is a lot of U.S. forces. Are we about to invade Venezuela?
I don't think so. I mean, if we do, I'd be surprised.
Earlier this month, President...
So he doesn't think that we're about to invade Venezuela, but it looks like we're about to invade Venezuela. I saw a statistic that 14% of the U.S. Navy was down there, something crazy like that, like in the Caribbean. Something feels like it's about to cook off.
Trump announced he approved covert CIA operations inside Venezuela.
What do you think removing Maduro would signal to other socialist regimes in the area?
It'll be the end of Cuba.
Now, that made, for the first time, made sense of why we might be doing anything that we're doing in Venezuela. Okay, Venezuela, I get it. If you're talking about drugs, you should be looking at Colombia, not Venezuela. Colombia is known for supplying drugs. Maduro's a bad guy. He's wanted by the U.S. government. There's a $50 million bounty on his head, but it's not the same thing. It's not like, but he's being targeted for drug interdiction. Okay, but if the oil from Venezuela drives up going to Cuba, then Cuba's in a very different place, and maybe that's what the connection is. I don't know.
Something's going to happen. Whether it's internal or external, I think something's going to happen.
Okay.
It'll be the end of Cuba.
Cuba relies on subsidized Venezuelan oil to prop up its economy.
America is going to take care of the Southern Hemisphere, and we're going to make sure that there's freedom and democracy.
Okay, now, it's not exactly our job, but, MAGA Republicans think in terms of we should be focused on our own nation and our own hemisphere rather than what's going on all around the world. And so this is just one more indication of that sort of thing. Now, hear this. In Putin in 2018 rescue of Venezuelan dictator Maduro led to Russia pouring more investments into the country, investments they will lose once Maduro falls. Maybe that's part of the connection. And there's a deeper connection, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Now, Putin's half-hearted effort to provide new weapons and shipments to fight America is laughable. And if we look at this in the translated version of this, a sanctioned Il-76 TD aircraft carrying a military cargo has arrived in Venezuela from Russia. Republicans are already openly advising Maduro to flee to Russia or China, which I just showed you. Russia will lose a lot as a result of the change in power in Venezuela, billions of dollars in outstanding debt and investments, its main geopolitical ally in Latin America, which will deal a serious blow to global status and reputation. It's like Syria all over again if Maduro falls and there's a free, democratically elected government in Venezuela. Because the elections were rigged. We talked about that a year ago. Military presence in lucrative military contracts, economic positions, access to resources and sales markets. Russia has completely displaced the United States in the supply of naphtha. That's the crude part of crude, which Caracas desperately needs to dilute its tarry crude, further pushing Trump to take action. By reclaiming Venezuelan oil, he will gain additional leverage to manipulate global oil markets. Rosneft, Rosatec, Gazprom will suffer colossal losses, but the main losses will be borne by our state as Venezuela's main creditor and ideological accomplice. Our state, this is a Russian talking. Yeah, so all kinds of bad things will be happening here for Russia if Venezuela loses Maduro and becomes a democratic country like its veneer is. Now, there's another piece of this puzzle. Putin strategic deal. Just Google Putin strategic deal Venezuela ratified, and you'll get this. This is just a AI summary of it. Yes, the strategic partnership and cooperation agreement between Russia and Venezuela has been ratified by both countries. So there was this partnership that was agreed to months ago. Venezuela's National Assembly approved the treaty in September of 2025. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a new law ratifying the agreement in October 2025. The deal was signed in May 2025, and so last month, Venezuela signed on. Today, it's October 27th. The Russian State Duma ratified the agreement in October of 2025. President Putin signed the law, ratifying it on October 27th, 2025. So that's the connection. It could lead us eventually into direct conflict. I don't know that will happen, but it's possible. Okay. Now, Maduro is now depending on Putin again to rescue him. Let's remember that in 2018 to 2019, the Venezuelan economic collapse looked a lot like Russia today. You know how you're seeing those cars lined up in Russia because of the oil crisis, because of Ukrainian sanctions on oil refineries? Well, yeah, we're looking at this. Gasoline was scarce, costing $10 to $15 per liter or $38 to $60 per gallon, while Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves. Well, one of the world's largest oil reserves. Now, what's interesting about this is Russia, like Venezuela, are these gas stations masquerading as states. In Venezuela, what actually happened was something pretty significant. It was a booming country for many, many years. And then they nationalized the oil, kicked out ExxonMobil and other companies that were engaged in drilling, and then destroyed their own oil economy. It was pretty fascinating to watch. And Russia seems to be doing something very similar. Speaking of which, in Russia, this is what's happening on Solovjov Live, right? Let's look at this. Gasoline still hasn't gotten any cheaper. Yeah, well, hold on. Gasoline still hasn't gotten any cheaper. Yeah, well, we've got a few issues here. Wait, gasoline price dropped? Yeah, that's the polite way to say it. So the price increase is called, it hasn't gotten any cheaper. Oh, it hasn't dropped so much that it actually shows a negative drop. They're talking about a negative drop. What is a negative drop? Well, a drop is this. A negative drop is it's going up. The price is going up, and that's what they're talking about. It actually shows a negative drop. So you learned something. You learned about a negative drop today, which means a price increase. All right, my friends, I do these every day. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Thank you for the likes. If you hit that, this video will spread. Thank you for the comments. I try to read as many as I can. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.